And we are live. Hey everyone, this is Nicholas Roman, author and creator of Scratch Health, How to Create a Whole New You in 90 Days from Scratch. And we're doing a little bit special episode this week. We have a special guest with us. Normally our day is Thursday Eastern Time, 8 p.m., where we shoot the show and go over topics, but because we have a special guest today, we're making a little bit of an exception. But the reason we were doing this is because one of the biggest parts of the Scratch Health philosophy is load factor. In the acrostic health, L represents the load factor, which is your postural integrity. And he's a great friend of mine, but not only is he a great friend of mine, but he's also very knowledgeable, and he's the clinic director of Egoscue Westchester. Gentleman's name is Greg Heinemann, and he's an expert on posture, postural integrity, more importantly, and how it can affect you, how can it help you. Also, if you don't do the right things, how it can limit you. So I don't want to steal too much of Greg's thunder here. I'm going to allow him to do most of the speaking in this week's episode, but we will be going back and forth with some questions and answers about the philosophy of Egoscue as well as how it can help you. So without further ado, let me bring up Greg Heinemann.
Thanks,
How's it
Nico.
going, Greg?
Hey, good, man. Thanks for the kind introduction. I appreciate it. All too nice of you to say that stuff, so I appreciate it.
No problem, man. No problem. It's you actually, just so everybody knows, you helped me out, quite frankly, about almost a year ago now.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, time flies. Time flies. But just so everybody knows, I went down to the Egoscue Clinic out in Westchester, which Greg is going to talk a little bit about in a minute. And yeah, I don't remember the date, but it was about a year ago, maybe 10 months ago. And actually on our YouTube channel, so everybody goes to Scratch Health on YouTube, I have a 3-part series that breaks down me going to your clinic and then me arriving there, and then of course you giving me the assessment and talking about how jacked up I was. But it's a great video for people to actually see what you do and how you do it and the philosophy that you talk about. But since you're here with me, why don't you go ahead and just give a little bit of background about yourself and talk a little bit about how you got into what you're doing now.
Sure, no problem. I have my degree from college is a kind of very traditional therapy one. I went to Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven and had a concentration in exercise science with my main focus being athletic training. So, athletic training is little guy runs on the field when one of the big guys gets hurt, and you try to pull him off and get him well. And so there's a lot of first aid and emergency care, and then I learned all the very traditional modalities of the taping techniques, stretching techniques, ultrasound, the e-stim, all the heat and ice and the reasons to do it and all that fun stuff. And it was great. I loved it. It was, no problems with it. I wasn't looking to do anything different. I thought I would go along that path of a certified athletic trainer. And it just happened to be I was in the training room one day, and the phone rings, and on the other end is Brian Bradley from the Egoscue Method in San Diego. And it's like, hey, we're looking for someone with these credentials, da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I know that person. It's me. And literally, he gave me the number to contact because the office that I run now was in Stamford, Connecticut. And they said, pass this number along to someone who may be interested. And all he said was looking to do something different with your degree. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do anything different, but I need a job. So I called up and met Michael Bellafato, who's one of Pete's senior therapists out in San Diego to this day, and set up myself for an interview. And really, the only reason why they told me they gave me the job that day is because I wore a suit in the interview.
Okay.
So they said, yeah, you're going to take it serious. You're going to show up wearing a suit. Everyone else is kind of wearing khakis and collared shirt like you got on yourself. And I don't know. I just wore the suit. They said it won them over. But I like that. That's great. But
Yeah.
what really got me into the method and having this be my kind of like my lifelong pursuit and helping people out is watching it in action. And like you can attest to, Nick, it's like none of the stuff is too mind-blowing. It's looking at, okay, your shoulder's higher, your foot's out, your hip's out. But I watched Michael work with a couple different people, and seeing within a 10, 15, 20 minutes of someone coming in with 17 different aches and pains and my life is over and I hurt here and there and I can't do anything anymore, I don't enjoy anything anymore, to within, like I said, 15, 20 minutes, wow, not only are you standing straighter and posturally do they look better, but they feel better and a little smile cracks on their face. And at the time when I'm first watching it, I'm like, I can't do that with my skill set. I don't know how to recreate that.
Right.
So I was like, I got to learn how to do this. This is for me. I got to figure this out. And that was October of 2003. when I first
So
started with
that was the
Egoscue.
beginning of your new path.
That's it. That's it.
So you know what? Let's take it back just a little bit. For everybody or for people out there who are totally not aware of the Egoscue method, a lot of times when I'm speaking to people, because I'm a big advocate of it. I talk about it all the time when I was
Yeah.
coaching and teaching in my class. I told you about that. I've even brought some people over to you.
Right.
And my whole thing was you can't start worrying about lifting heavy weights. You can't worry about start putting all this load on your body without making sure the posture. I always use the example of if you have a house but the foundation is weak and you keep putting heavy stuff in the house and
Yeah.
loading up the second floor. After a while, if that foundation is weak, the house is going to come apart.
Yeah, that's a great way to talk about it. I mean, the human body and the Egoscue method is founded by Pete Egoscue, who's a Marine and a former college football player who had an injury and used his degree from college, which was political science, to study the body. So he looks at it at the most simple form in that you see straight anatomy book, you see the guy standing there, shoulders level, hips level, knees and feet. Like you said, that building needs to be straight. That's human design. That's the one thing that all us humans have in common, no matter how tall, short, big or small that we are. We all should have those properties in place where, again, things are 90 degrees in level. And that's really the whole thing we're looking at. Like you said, it's building, it's stacking the body up. We use the term straighten before you strengthen. We don't want to train dysfunction and things like that. And that's our main premise. And that's the biggest thing we help people get well with. And that, yes, people come for symptomatic relief, but ultimately our goal is to change their posture, change their body position, just through some simple movement. No manipulation, just exercise and movement.
That brings up a good question. I wanted you to kind of take it back for the person who's just taking a look at this for the first time and they are just accustomed to normal stretches, touching your toes, stretching your back, things that they probably learned in gym in high school or just things that they see on TV. What is the difference between just regular stretching and the Egoscue method that you teach?
Sure. The Egoscue method it's very specific to, especially coming to see me. I mean, Pete has 5 books out that offer people a myriad of things to help them with in different parts of their body. Even that book has this, and all these books have the same philosophy in that we care about your body position ultimately more than where your pain or where you're hurt or even where your tight is, where you're tight, where your body is tight. So the difference between us and stretching and getting someone a program is that it's designed for you. People who stretch their hamstrings every single day and they're tight every single day and it doesn't get any better, there has to be a reason why, and it's bigger than your hamstrings. So it's almost like if my hamstrings are tight every day and they don't change, stretching your hamstrings is almost a useless stretch for you.
Right.
It's finding why do your hamstrings get tight, understanding the cause and effect relationship between how your body functions and why things are at certain tensions, and addressing that more than like, okay, let's just stretch my hamstrings because they're tight. Or let's stretch my back because it's tight. It's understanding why. So there's a why component to why do these things happen, not only from a tightness sense, but from a pain or limitation sense that people, Pete's book is called Pain Free. So people come to us mostly for that.
So it's in a sense, it's stretching with a purpose.
It is
versus just stretching for stretching's sake.
Correct, and exactly, and then hopefully we throughout the course of teaching this to someone, they have the power and they understand. Okay, well, why are my hamstrings always tight? Because that's when people really can take the ball and run with it. Is that they know what the heck's going on. They can really feel empowered to do something about it and take care of themselves every day. And that's ultimately the overreaching goal of Egoscue, is provide people with the ability to have no limits.
You know what? That I have a lot of people that I used to train that were big into yoga.
Yeah.
And I know we were speaking about this prior, and I just kind of want you to elaborate on that a little bit more, which is because I've been told myself, and like I said, because I'm just, my knowledge is very basic. I know enough to kind of get somebody started, and then if they're really severe or they need more work, I always send them to you to kind of help them, fix them up totally. But for a lot of the questions I tend to get, which is, well, I already do yoga, I don't really necessarily think I need this because I'm getting flexible week by week. I'm already flexible. So my posture should be fine. Just because somebody is flexible, does that necessarily mean that they have structural integrity?
No, not necessarily. And the easiest way to show that to someone is just taking some pictures of them to see what's what and how they line up. I mean, we use yoga exercises, and yoga's been around for thousands of years, much longer than the Egoscue method. But like you said, it's stretching with a purpose. It's movement with a purpose. It's, okay, well, I want to do downward dog. Everyone should be able to do a downward dog or a cobra and stuff like that. but how does it relate to you? You know, why is that cobra important, or why does that cobra hurt you, or why does that downward dog, what does that downward dog do to you that's beneficial that you need to do, other than just sake of it's part of my routine, it's what I do. So there's a difference between being functional and being flexible. Flexibility is one component of function. So it's important to be flexible, but there also has to be joint integrity, strength, range of motion, full range of motion of all the body parts as well too. That do encompass that term of function and not just flexible.
When you say function, how would you really define that for somebody? Like if I'm coming to you for the first time, you're talking function to me. What exactly does functionality mean in relative to the joint or relative to the actual movements? How would you define that for someone?
Function for us is encompassed in how the body lines up. As far as, do you have integrity of your joints? Are you level in your shoulders? Are you level in your pelvis? Are your feet straight? Does your body stack up from your ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle, from your side views? And then it's a test to see how things move. It's like I said, it's three parts. It's strength, flexibility, and range of motion. So all those things, if you have those components and the ability to move your body in all ways with no limitation, that encompasses function. Now, with that being said, who is really functional?
Right.
You know, there's a lot to consider, and mainly because it's what we do or what we don't do, and how we train or not train ourselves that can create these limitations.
That makes a good point, because depending on your sport of choice or what you do, I mean, in a sense, we're all jacked up in one way or another.
Sure. I mean, you look at probably one of the best athletes on the planet, LeBron James. He's athletic. No one will doubt his athletic ability. Is he 100% functional from like a postural standpoint? No. I mean, look at his feet point out at 10 and 2, and he's a little bow leg, and his shoulders are a little off. But functionality and athletic ability do not go hand in hand. They're not necessarily correlated as far as, oh, you must be perfectly lined up to be a good athlete. That's not true, because there are certain things about playing basketball or throwing a baseball or hitting a golf ball that you need to have kind of an advantage of to be the best golfer or the best baseball pitcher you can be.
So in a way, that's good. I never realized that in all the times that we spoke. So, in a sense, you can actually be dysfunctional, but actually the dysfunction is actually helping you along your sport to make you even better?
Sure. It may make you better at your sport. Now, what it does to you long term, that's, what it does to you in, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years into your career. Will it cause say if you're a pitcher, will it cause your elbow to blow out faster? Will it predispose you to a possible knee injury? Maybe. Maybe. Then that's the concern. So that's why being functional is important. It's great to be athletic, great to do your thing. The functionality thing allows the body to, a term I used before, limitless. Like you're not worried about hurting yourself, because you can't.
Right. Yeah, you become, in a sense, you become bulletproof. You make your body bulletproof.
Yeah, that's a great way to talk about it. Yeah.
We're talking dysfunction a lot. How would you define dysfunction? What does that actually mean to be dysfunctional for someone?
Good question. So we talk about things in two terms when people are off with their posture. Compensation, which is a term I think a lot of people are familiar with. Compensation for me is how your body cheats, what you do as a workaround. Dysfunction is your problem. It's the part of the body that doesn't function right, whether it's a lack of range of motion, lack of strength, lack of flexibility. It's a part of your body that impedes normal function. 99 times out of 100, where you hurt is not your dysfunction. Usually, a compensation is basically a compensation is cheating for your dysfunction, and your body cannot continue to compensate that way any longer. So it gives up. It works. It overworks. You get your itises and your inflammatory responses and what goes on with the body, and it's those things that tend to give you the symptom. And usually the problem is somewhere else in the body. So think of it in terms of cause and effect. Dysfunction is your cause, your compensation, or even your symptom is the effect.
So I can have, let's say I'm walking around with a shoulder pain issue, or I'm walking around and I got, my posture is more towards kind of like flexion instead of extension. Yeah. That necessarily doesn't mean that, because most people would think, well, I probably got to take some kind of towel and stretch out my shoulders, stretch out the back or something. That I could totally be off with that, and you're saying that I can actually, it could be my ankles or somewhere in my hips that would be the cause of that.
Especially if it's not changing. Like if you're doing the right stuff and you're doing, okay, my shoulder hurts, let's get my shoulder back. But if it still is staying the same, it's not changing to either the rate you want it or it's not changing at all, something else has to be involved. Because if very well you get something going on with your shoulder, yeah, my shoulder's tight, let's get it working right, let's stretch it out. But if it's not changing or it continues to come back, it's a bigger picture, and you're not, again, you're just trying to fix the symptom and you're not getting at the problem.
Okay. Well, one of the things, Greg, that I like to do, and this, we spoke about this as well, is I try to give people information to kind of let them empower themselves to a degree. Obviously, I don't like anybody that I'm talking to or teaching to try to take it too far, because unless you're an expert at what you do, unless you know what you're doing, you could potentially get hurt. So I don't want nobody to hurt themselves. But if somebody's feeling off, or they got some kind of injury, or they feel like their body's a little off, and they want to kind of assess for themselves if they're off, what are some things that somebody can do just to kind of, and maybe an exercise or two or a method or two that they can do, figure out exactly if they're off, and then if they are, then go seek somebody like yourself and get the help?
That's a great question, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be pain. Couple of the big tests we do for people, one is stand against the wall. Just put your heels against the wall, try to get your body back against the wall, and just feel what's up. Do both sides of your body feel the same? Like, do both calves touch? Do both hips touch? Does your back evenly touch the wall? Your upper back, I mean. Does your head hit the wall easily? If people have a hard time standing up, you can do the same test lying down on the ground. Lie down on your back, bend your knees at a 45-degree angle so your knees are bent and your feet are flat on the floor, and just pay attention. Most people know what's wrong with them. Whether they want to admit it or not is another story. But most people, if they feel something's wrong, they're right. And this is a good little test to kind of feel where their body is in relationship to either the floor or the wall, or how gravity is putting a toll or pushing their body one way or the other. Now, if they find that they're off, I always have 3 exercises, and I can get you these to be either post to people that are just simple, kind of balance checks as far as like, okay, here's my balance now. Let's do these 3 things that take a total of 3 minutes to do, and let's see what my balance is afterwards. And that's just simple. Stand up on your feet and close your eyes, and is the weight the same on your feet? Like, are you more right foot or left foot, or more toe or more heel? And then you do these 3 exercises and see what's different.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great if we can get that for people to actually as a resource to use. Yeah,
it's a good little, again, besides just standing against the wall and feeling what's off, here's something to do if you are off. And it will, these are things all trying to address one of the things you mentioned earlier, maybe a little more of a rounded or a flexed posture, which a lot of people, anyone who sits for a living will have a little bit of, which most people do, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, everybody, well, let me not say everybody, but so many people have jobs where they're just sitting all the time. Yeah. And some professional people, lawyers, doctors, sometimes they're sitting for hours at a clip. And what is that actually? What is the sitting position? I mean, we're sitting right now talking, but
I know.
You're ruining my posture during this interview. But what does the sitting position actually do, or how bad is it for the body? How does it actually affect the structure? And do you recommend anything for somebody to do if they're in a position where they got to sit for 8, 9, 10 hours out of the day because they're self-employed or with their job? Yeah. What do you recommend they do to kind of get out of that mode?
I mean, one of the easiest things to do is just stand up and move around. You can do the 3 exercises that I'm going to send you as just a recheck or a reset. Kind of get your body moving a little bit better, get the spine more functional. Sitting is, I mean, humans can sit. We're designed to sit, maybe not for the amount of time that we sit, but we should be able to do it. If sitting hurts you, then there's a problem with how gravity is affecting your body while you're sitting, whether shoulders off, spine doesn't move, things like that. I mean, one of the biggest things that sitting will tend to do for people, it will change the shoulder position as they get tired. It'll change the spine position. A lot of it creates a lot of tightness or tension, mostly around hip flexors and psoas, and then as it changes the spine from there, then your hips get tight, your back gets tight, lower back gets tight, and then it will go into upper back, neck, and shoulders. So it's kind of that chain up the back of the body. A lot of it is just it gets lazy. If you sit all the time, your body gets really good at sitting.
Right. It's because that's one of the actually one of the principles that you talk about, and I think it's within the book as well, pain-free from the Egoscue method, is
Yeah.
your body will adjust to whatever it needs to adjust to depending on what you're doing. Am I right?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing as the sport. Like you shoot 6,000 foul shots a day, your body's going to get accustomed to doing that. And same thing, you sit for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, your body's going to get really good at sitting, and it's going to take that sitting position to most places. So now you get like your weekend warrior who I sat for 38 hours this week at my desk, and now I want to go play some ball. What's going to happen?
That's asking for problems.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're going to take your sitting position into trying to run and trying to get the hips to move and the spine to move and jump and land, and you may not get the best result you want.
Right. Let's talk about for kids. Is this something that little ones can do? And I know you have a little one. I have
Yeah.
I have a little big one because he's 12, but he's like 5'7", so he's almost my height.
Nice.
But would you recommend children doing e-sizes, or can it actually help them as well? And
Sure.
Not before you even answer that, I just kind of gave away my next question. I was gonna ask you what do they call it, but they're e-sizes for everybody.
Right. E sizes. They don't mean anything. It's just Egoscue sizes, and they shorten them to E sizes.
Yeah.
Kids, yeah. I mean, that's one of our pushes. We have a whole athletics side of we have kind of therapy, education. We have athletics, and most of our athletics is geared towards children. The therapy can be useful for children. Unfortunately, my average age client is getting younger because I'm seeing more kids with herniated discs, or they're blowing their knees out, or their elbows are shot, or whatever. Unfortunately, I'm seeing more of that. So the therapy can be useful for kids, or scoliosis. We see a lot of young kids scoliosis, but mostly the exercise stuff, or the athletic part, which we call patch fitness, is really useful for any kid, regardless of athletic ability, pain or no pain. Just get out there and move around. Like, pretend like you're back when we were kids. I mean, so long ago when we were kids, but I mean, even I played outside most of the day. I still had Nintendo, but my grandmother kicked us out of the house most of the day.
Right.
So.
I mean, I still try to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, so the way our patch fitness program really tries to take kids back to that, we have an apparatus called the patch, which is an obstacle course that you can do specific things on. But the patch can be anything. You can go and use the regular playground with just a slide and some high-rise steps and elevation changes as a patch, and it works just great. It's just get out, move your body, move around. That's what kids today need more than ever. It's just an environment where they're not only safe, but they can move and get the benefit of movement back in their life again.
Do you have any examples that you can kind of share with everybody of maybe a group of kids or somebody, or maybe a high school team or something that you've worked with and have some results utilizing these methods?
Sure. We have my business partner. It coaches high school football and high school lacrosse, and whether they know it or not, these kids do Egoscue. We don't necessarily call it that. These kids all have a menu they do. They all have routines that they do pre and post. They have different things they're doing that they're working on their body function. And I think it was the last 2 years for Mike's football team, they had, which is a good rate for now with the frequency how much they get concussions. They've only had maybe 3 concussions, and one kid broke his wrist because he fell funny. One kid broke his ankle. But they really were able to avoid a lot of the nagging knee, sprained ankles, shoulder stuff that ends up happening all far too often just due to body imbalance.
Okay, great.
And then for me personally, we had this is an Egoscue event we did in Nashville. We tend to do this stuff. We go to random places or random parks, hopefully with a lot of people at, and we start doing a patch workout. And we drag whoever is with us who wants to join, who looks at these weird people jumping around doing stuff. We drag them on. We drag them on with us to have them do stuff with us. And specifically, we were in Nashville. We probably had 8 or 9 kids jumping over logs with us and climbing under the playground. And it was more than anything, the kids had a blast with it. Every little kid was smiling, trying to do something new. That was probably the best thing out of it that the kids got. They had fun. It was safe. We had fun too as a side kind of positive. So it was great.
It's funny because you talk about having to drag them out to go play. It's funny because when like you said, when we were younger, being outside was just what you did.
Yeah.
You look around outside, and I did a video a couple of weeks ago at Hangout, and I was talking to Pedro, and we're talking about you don't even see kids. I mean, regardless of where you are, for the most part, you don't see them outside playing around like that anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And all that inactivity, which actually brings up what you were talking about earlier, which was you're saying that you're seeing younger and younger people come in. Do you think that this inactivity and what's happening right now is probably what's causing a lot of this early injury?
Yeah, some of it is. I see a lot of kids who sport specialize very early. Where I'm 8 years old and I only play tennis, or I'm whatever and I only play name your sport, and that's part of it too. Is like I played as best as my ability could. I tried to play 3 sports, all the way through high school, and it's a good thing for you. It's a good thing to play different sports and not have to be pigeonholed into one thing all the time. And that's what I tend to see with my younger kids, is that they're really getting into, they have the pitfalls of the tremendous amount of schoolwork, the lifestyle of playing on your iPhone and all that stuff. But then I only play one sport because I only have time for one sport.
Right.
Or I want to be the best at lacrosse and I need to get into college. It's a different mentality.
So that specialization, in a sense, is kind of causing these imbalances, which is getting them hurt.
Yeah, that's what I tend to see a lot of. I tend to see a lot of that, kids who just get into, not that tennis is or any sport is bad. It's just if it's the only thing you do, it's bound to happen.
Right. Well, let's talk running. I know that you're an avid runner. I mean, you were talking about the Vivo barefoots and just minimalist footwear that you like to wear. I mean, before I don't want to go into that just yet, but let's talk a little bit about running, because one of the things that I do, especially in my own assessments, I have and they're going to be seeing this on the website soon. I have something that's called the Scratch Pad, which is the preliminary analysis of disease and dysfunction.
Cool.
So it's just something that people can utilize that gives them an idea of whether or not they're healthy or unhealthy. Now, of course, it's not an exact science, but it gives them a barometer of figure out where they are. And
that's huge. It's really important for people to have that tool.
Yeah. And one of the things is, that I stress with people through the Scratch Pad, when I see them, kind of assess them in my own way. The way that you assess people through the Egoscue methods is posture and seeing exactly what their levels of fitness are and flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. What about running? I know that can be a big deal as far as hurting your posture, or it could actually help you along depending on how you're structured. You're a big time runner. I know you run a lot of miles. Talk a little bit about some of the runners that you've helped, and maybe some running posture and some things that in regard to that.
Sure, we see every level of runner, from the recreational person to professional triathletes, and for us, our big thing is what body are you taking to that activity, and that's true for almost any sport, but especially running, where you're at some point in time you're going to break down. So what kind of integrity do you have to maintain, not from a mental standpoint, but from a muscle memory standpoint, where your body will just remember to do the right thing and won't fall off or break down. So with our people, it's stressing the importance of, things that are related, very important to running. How does your spine function? How do your hips move? How do your feet function? Foot function is gigantic for these people, for any level of runner, especially for your novice runners. The ability for their feet to move will give them 30% better results, almost guaranteed, if they just help their feet. So it's a big deal. And some of, we talked about the minimalist shoes briefly, but the minimalist shoes sometimes will help you get there, or at least give you feedback on where you should be.
And that's a good point, because the shoes now, they got those 12 millimeter thick soles on them, and that's kind of like the average sole. How does that play into affecting your posture? How does that play into either being more effective as a runner, creating more lasting endurance, or maybe even hindering some endurance? What is your opinion on the minimalist footwear and how that helps you, and if it helps you at all?
Sure. I mean, I think the bigger cast-like shoes are with the 12 millimeter heel and then are really structured and supportive. For some people, they are necessary, but they should be something that you should move away from, where your body gets stronger and you don't need as much support. Essentially, you're relying on a piece of plastic or foam to do what your foot should do on its own. And when you become dependent on it, that's when you start to have problems. The biggest thing that your feet should be able to do, and the biggest thing that most minimalist shoes enable you to do, is actually feel your feet. Feel what's going on. Feel how your feet are contacting the ground. And if you're contacting the right way, or you're, wow, I'm really slamming my right foot down. Ouch, that hurts. I need to
Right.
change that. Things like that. That's one of the biggest things that most of the minimalist shoes will give you the ability to do is feel where your feet are. You have so many nerve endings in the bottom of your feet. You have what, quarter of your bones in your body are in your feet. Your feet are very important. And running with a better technique and posture is very important. Technique is very important. Knowing how and where you should land, especially in minimalist shoes, is a big deal. The traditional or the old-fashioned shoe lets you get away with a lot of bad habits.
Hmm.
I know
Like heel striking.
they'll mask it for you. Essentially, you won't feel it, so you'll just keep doing it.
What are some minimalist shoes? Well, do you use
I
minimal? Are you still using them?
Oh yeah, right now I'm wearing the Vivo Barefoots. Um, I like them a lot. I did a seminar with them a few weeks ago. That was awesome. And these guys have some really cool stuff that they talk about with people as far as the function of their feet, how the foot should land, how it should strike, how much your hamstring should work. Ultimately, though, their step number one is the same as our step number one: posture.
Mm,
If you're not set up right, you're doomed from the beginning.
right.
So get your posture right, get your body in the right position naturally, or with some movement things, and then go out. And they talk about running as a skill. A talent is something that someone's born with, but a skill is something that anyone can learn or practice to get better at.
Well, yeah, I mean that makes sense because it's true. People are running with the thick heels, the heel striking, and they think that that's running. And when they put on these shoes for the first time, they realize that when they try to heel strike, they're
It
in for a
hurts.
world, they're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, it hurts. I mean, it absolutely hurts. And I've had some people say, "Oh, the five-finger shoes, they will fracture your metatarsals." Sure, if you continue to heel strike, you're slamming your foot into the ground.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you don't change that or don't listen to what your body's saying by "ouch, this hurts," then you have some problems.
yeah,
More than
yeah.
anything. I like the Vivos a lot. They really give you a lot of good feel. That's for me. Like, I know when I'm not hitting the ground right. You know, I can feel it instantly.
How would you how would you how would you like kind of ease somebody into, let's you got a person that's there, he's been going to you, you've helped him get structurally sound, and now
Hmm.
he wants to start the process of bettering his running technique, so he jumps into minimalist footwear. What would be your advice to ease him into that, as opposed to saying, go gung ho, run 3-4 miles first
Yeah,
time?
yeah. There are some things. There are some great things to do. We actually teach people first how to walk correctly. So walking is different than running, and kind of you need heel strike when you walk. So we teach something called the function run to people, which is, it's called a run because of the kind of movement that your body does and the pace that you go at, but essentially it's trying to train correct walking, get the right walking muscles working. Uh, then from there, it's doing some simple assessment on how does your body run, and we'll actually go and run with people and say, hey,
Okay.
let's go with you. Let's go out. Let's go for a jog. You saw our parking lot. We have a big enough parking lot we can kind of get around it for 2 laps, and it will be about a half a mile or so. And it's enough time to get some critique or get some things for people to do, whether it's changing their arm swing and stuff like that, or more importantly, kind of seeing, okay, here your body was set up really nice before. You went for a run, and now your foot feels weird, or you knew what happened posturally, like what happened structurally, or how are you actually moving that either you went back into an old habit, or what isn't 100% perfect yet that may cause you to go back. But if you're running right and you're set up right, you should be able to move pretty well with little consequence.
Let me ask you this. I wanted your opinion on this because obviously I have my own research and stuff. Do you think that, because I'm a big proponent of the minimalist footwear. I prefer the Vibram Five Fingers.
Cool.
I've tried a few of them, different ones, and I haven't tried Vivo yet, so I got to get on that one so I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I've tried a couple of ones like Zem Gear. I've tried a few
Mhm.
others, but I'm loving the Five Fingers. I got about 6 pair now. I just bought another pair, and
Nice.
I can run 2, 3, 4 miles with them, without a problem. My question is this: if somebody never knew about the Egoscue method, or maybe for whatever reason they can't come see you in Westchester,
Sure.
are those shoes, is that kind of footwear, does it kind of self-correct or self-teach you and kind of put you posturally where you need to be over time if you take your time, or do you really need to be assessed and make sure that you have done exercise and the thing in advance, that way you can get your body where it needs to be first and then go on to that? My thinking is that, in my opinion, and I could be way off, but I have taught some people, I had them just start out the process with minimalist footwear just by walking. And even though they've had terrible posture, I've seen, hunch, what do you call that, lumbar lordosis and all these different things that they got going on with them, but then have them start the process of utilizing this footwear, and maybe it's just anecdotal evidence, but some of them have given me great feedback saying, you know what, I've done it for 4 or 5 months. I notice now that I've evened out a little bit. I've kind of self-taught in myself. I don't know if it's all in the head, or is there anything really behind that?
No, sure. They're using their body, and that's the biggest thing. That's the shoes enable you to do, especially like the 5 fingers. They force your feet to work. You have no choice wearing that. They force your feet in a better position. They force you to spread. They force you to kind of use your foot right, and you use the right term. You have to go slow with them.
Right.
You can't just go gung-ho with them. And I've made the mistake myself. I was wearing Nike Frees for about 3 years before I got my first pair of 5 fingers. And I'm like, yeah, I wear Nike Frees. I'm fine. I wear minimalist footwear. And I'm like, I'll go for an easy 2-mile run. And I had to walk back or limp back because my calves were on fire. Because the Nike Frees, I don't use my feet the same way that I did in the 5 fingers.
That's awesome. They humbled you.
Oh, big time, big time. So I gained a newfound respect for stuff like that. But I realized, I've been wearing these shoes. I need to go slow.
Right.
The thing like that for where the Egoscue could be advantage to that, or postural correction could be advantage to that, is instead of taking it 4 or 5 months, maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes 2. You can get onto your things a lot faster because you're able to work on the feet with your shoes and some of your e-sizes, but ensure the hips are level, ensure the knees work right, ensure the spine is able to bend and absorb shock the way it's supposed to.
That's actually a good segue, because you read my mind. My next question was going to be, I'm sure people who are listening or going to be listening to this over time, what they're thinking now is, okay, this sounds good. I'm in. Now I do this. How long can it take before I can expect some results? Because that's, we live in microwave society.
Oh, absolutely.
People want results like in about 15 minutes after they started it.
Yeah,
so
you'll know Egoscue is a program for you day one, and I'm very confident in that. Not necessarily it's going to take all your pain away. You're going to be magically cured with the silver bullet, but the exercises and the routine that you do should change your body. That in ways like, oh, I'm standing straighter. I can move easier. My balance is better. I can sit in a chair more comfortably now. It's stuff like that changes before, like, someone with level 9 back pain says, oh my God, my back pain's gone away. Pain-free includes stories like that. Oh, I did the exercises one time and all my back pain went away. That would be great if that was everyone. But that's put in there to sell books.
Right. I mean, I can attest to that. When I went there, I thought in my mind, I thought I was the man. So I thought I was like, I know all this stuff. I'm doing this because I want to get it done for the viewers. I want them to understand this method. I love the method. I want to have Greg teach it to the people, but I'm good. And then you started breaking down how jacked up I was, and I was like, oh, snap.
It's humbling. It's humbling. You're right.
It really is true, because, and I can, like I said, I can attest to it. You won't feel renewed overnight, but you do feel different in that one session, because one thing you told me was, what is it? Once you go through the menu, which is the series of exercises, after you've been assessed, your body kind of puts you back in the right place temporarily, right? The muscles will hold it for approximately how long would you say?
Everyone's different. Some people it's as short as 15 minutes. Some people it'll give you like half a day.
Okay.
But it's muscle memory. It's trying to return we all have the same memory. Like I was saying earlier, we all have the same memory of the same design, that where things should be in a certain place. So your body knows it. You look at, I have a 2-year-old at home, and she's perfect right now. Like everything is set up the way it's supposed to. So we have that in us. It's not like, my mommy has bunions, so that means I'm gonna have a bunion. No.
Right.
We were born perfect. We just mess it up some way along the way, and some of it may be from, most people are visual learners. I'm kind of getting off topic, but we learn to move through visual cues. So if mommy walks a certain way with her foot turned out, well, little Susie's gonna walk that same way, and mommy and Susie both have bunions, so it must be genetic.
Oh no, that's good. I mean, you're saying off topic, but I like that, because it's not just one thing that affects your posture overall. I mean, there's a myriad of things. We could talk about this probably for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
But one of them, so you're saying one of them is, if you and I are brothers and we're both small, you're my older brother, so I'm seeing you walk a certain way, act a certain way, carry your posture in a certain way, and maybe you're doing it because you're thinking it's cool with your friends, and I'm thinking that's just how you're supposed to be. So I can visually, I'm messing up myself because I'm trying to copy you.
Sure, there's a lot of that. I mean, I've seen multiple examples of family members who like, oh yeah, you move exactly like your brother, and you're 6 years younger and you're a girl, but you move exactly like your brother. It's just
That's awesome.
And brother is a good athlete. Brother is a good student. So I want to be like Billy.
Right. Right. That's awesome. People would never really think of that. It's good that you brought that up. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's no DNA code for bunions.
So let's and I know, because I don't like to give people time frames or guidelines, because I understand everything is different. And the same way when I was teaching my class and I'm coaching people, so I get that, and I'm not trying to beat you over the head with it. However, because I know that everybody loves to have time frames, it's like A and B. They like to have these little things that they can put in a box.
Yeah.
If you had to give your best guess, assuming somebody's not really badly dysfunctioned, they just maybe have minor dysfunction, they come to you, they go through the menu, which I want you to explain in about a minute or two, your process of actually what you do with somebody from when they come to the clinic, because I mean we have it all on video and I have it on the channel for them to see you, but I want you to talk about it as well.
Sure.
So they come to you, they see this. What would you say, how long approximately for them to maybe not be perfect structurally, but get to the point where they might be either pain-free or they start to notice the difference in their gait when they walk, or maybe in their back or their posture maybe with more extension, just when they start to see some noticeable difference?
Those second things that you meant, like difference in their gait, difference in how they move, or how I'm standing straighter, if we're giving you the right stuff, that should have a change like day one. Again, it may not hold that long, but it should kind of get you in that right frame day one. Every day you do it, the window opens of how long it starts to hold, and through that. I always tell people that if you want a time frame to feel better, I really can't give it to you. Everyone's perception of pain is very different and unique and individual and very true. But as long as your body is progressively making changes and posture is changing, you're going to get well. I mean, the typical thing we see people for 8 weeks, and by the end of 8 weeks, we kick you out. We expect not only you have enough information, but you're doing pretty well too. You have some good stuff going on where A, you know what to do, and B, you're comfortable with where you are. And a very common path for all of our clinics across the country is that we're sometimes too good at getting you out of pain, and we don't paint the full picture of, okay, once your pain is gone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are perfect or that you're
better.
Problem situation. You're better enough, and a very typical thing is, visit, 4 weeks in, I'm going to skip this week, Greg. I'm feeling great. I got something to do at work. Great. I'll see you in next week, or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe a month, or stuff like that. And then 6 months down the road, oh, Greg, my back is killing me again. What happened? Well, it's like, it's like, Bill, what happened? Well, I went from doing my exercises every day to 5 times a week to 3 times a week to not at all. And it's a very typical Egoscue experience, is that not that the exercises are the only thing that get you well, but they help combat the stuff that we do daily that we get back in our old habits again. So as far as Egoscue is like, what's the time frame? You're doing some form or fashion of Egoscue, we say, for life. It's a lifestyle change.
Right. And no, it's true, because and going back to the time frames, I'll talk about my experience personally. When I went to you, got the menu, got the series of exercises, I went about 6 weeks afterwards, and I noticed, man, I was walking like when we were done with the assessment on a consistent basis, and I was like all jacked up, like, man, it was pretty quick. Now, once again, as a disclaimer, it doesn't mean that it's going to be for everybody, because it really does depend on what level of dysfunction you're at. For me, it was about 6 weeks, but to go into what you were talking about, it really is true, because what happens is I start to get comfortable, and even now and again, I'll stop doing my menu in the morning, which for my menu is 15 minutes, but I know you were saying that it can go as high as an hour and a half or something.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So my menu is about 15 minutes, but I'm all over the place. You see, I'm doing healthy hangouts. We got the sites. We're doing videos, interviewing experts. All the stuff that we're working on. Sometimes I just it passes me, and I say, you know what, damn, I forgot to do these sizes today. I ain't gonna do it. But you know what? After I might get away for about a week, but by that second week, all of a sudden, maybe my shoulder feels a little dipped again. I mean, what it helps you to do is it really gets you in tune with how you feel, and that's one
Yeah.
of the things I like about it.
Yeah, it makes you pay attention. Makes you be aware of yourself. You can't just kind of float around in the ether and yeah, I'm here. You gotta pay attention to yourself a little bit. And usually, what the big reminder is for people is their pain comes back in some form or fashion, or something else starts to hurt again.
Right.
And that's really just your body saying, "Wake up! Hey, you got to do something."
No, it's amazing how dysfunctional a lot of us are, because when you're done with the assessment, your body's essentially where it needs to be, and it's like we've never felt that before because there's been so many years since you were perfectly aligned, so
Yeah.
to speak, that when you're there, it makes you cognizant of how you're supposed to be, and then 3 or 4 days later, and you're back to being, Mr. Hunched. You're like, okay, now I know what correct feels like.
Yeah.
I want to get back there again.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's again, that's why kind of this is lifestyle stuff where it's just you got to remind it every day because we do bad stuff, that we kind of have to do sometimes. We just can't avoid. Not that it's bad or worse, but you just gotta, one of the things you do. That's all.
Now, let's talk about the maintenance of their program. And I'm sure some people who listen to this, and of course I'm always recommending people to that. So there's going to be more people going to you, and you're already busy as it is. But somebody, they come to you, they get the process done, and they're going through this. Now I know one of the questions I might ask if I never knew about this was, okay, it might be a lifestyle, but man, am I gonna have to do this every day for the rest of my life, and just one more thing to do on top of all the other crap I got to do?
Right.
Or are they able to kind of wean off of it to a certain extent over time? Can you explain that process of maybe maintenance?
Sure. I mean, how I use the method these days are totally dependent on my time. I have 4 different routines that I'll alternate. I have a 15-minute routine if I'm short on time. I can always find 15 minutes, no matter how busy I am. I can always find 15 minutes at some point in the day. I have a 45-minute routine. Maybe I have a little longer lunch. I can do a little extra. I got to work on my shoulder. I got a softball game in the night. I got to do something a little extra. I have a long routine, 2.5 hour routine. It's mainly spending time doing our biggest exercise that most people will see on the internet about us is this called the supine groin progressive in the tower, which could be anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours total in just that one exercise. And then I have a routine that's 30 minutes or so that's a workout. Again, it all depends on kind of what my time frame is, what I'm looking for, what I need to address. That's how I use the method. That's kind of how, if I were to push my belief on people, that's kind of how I would push people towards as far as having a different plan for different scenarios.
Right. Let me ask you this, because I have a friend of mine who I wanted to address this question because you know how it is. You can't be a prophet in your own land, and your friends, they don't believe a damn thing you say. I mean,
friends and family are the toughest.
You could be the world's expert, and they're like, you're full of crap.
Exactly.
But there's someone that I know who I don't know now. I don't know the extent of his back. I know he says he has a bad back. He's very he's hunched. He's a little bit of eversion, and I know we can't cover everything. I'm gonna have to have you come back. We'll have another talk another day. But eversion is basically the kind of like the duck feet.
Yeah.
Right. So he's got that going on. But his number one thing is he tells me he used to run. He used to be into boxing, and he says now I can't do that anymore because my back hurts. And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, your back hurts. You avert it, your shoulders around it, and you're like leaning to one side. But in his mind, because a doctor told him at one point he had a herniated disc, which may not be as bad anymore, and it's kind of healed itself, he can't run anymore. For somebody like that, is it, in your opinion, and like I know you probably have to assess someone like that, but in your experience in the past helping others, have you had people in similar situations who've been able to get themselves together and be able to run again, at least maybe light running?
Unfortunately, that's like my most common client.
Really?
I see that person almost every day in some form or fashion, whether it's their back or their knee or their neck or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing people with some pretty serious stuff, and the way you describe his posture, Pete Egoscue's original book called Health Through Motion, which was written in '92, I think, puts people in 3 different categories: condition 1, 2, and 3, and it's all just based on basic things that these people have. And minus him leaning to one side, he is as true of a condition 1 as you can get, And the thing that makes you a condition 1 is that you're crazy tight. Everything about you is tight, not only your muscles.
Right.
You know? And Pete had a follow-up book called Pain-Free Living, which takes those 3 different conditions and puts them into mindsets as far as, okay, well, if you have this mindset, it actually may predispose your body to be a certain way.
Okay.
So there's the fact finder, which is your condition 1, that kind of tight posture. There's your skeptic, which is, okay, we call it like your asymmetrical posture. The skeptic they'll give you a little bit, they'll hear you out, but they're not going to really buy into it. They're so to pull away. And then you have your, I'm not using the right term, but the term is victim, which is kind of that sunken in, everything is kind of protected, the pelvis is tucked under posture. And having those mindsets about scenarios can actually influence your posture more than what you do.
Wow.
Even. And so that talks about getting your mind right and giving you some tools, using the exercises to actually help get you there. That, wow, okay, I feel a little better about myself, just because I'm doing stuff, and how that helps get you to have a little bit of mind change and ultimately get your body to really change to the fullest extent.
That's that mind-body connection. Unless so many people underestimate the power of the mind-body connection.
It's a big deal, man. The physical is maybe half the battle.
Like G.I. Joe?
Yeah, exactly.
So in a sense, theoretically, or maybe not theoretically, maybe it's been proven with some, you're dealing with people on a daily basis. You're saying more of an open posture, more of a loosened structure, structural integrity actually can potentially mean more open-mindedness, or maybe dealing with problems a lot better.
Sure, it can. How you assess situations, absolutely.
Wow,
you even hear it in the language people, in talking to Pete and being around him enough, in some of the language that he uses to describe these people, and he mentions it in the book, you can even pick out how people look on the phone just by their voice. So,
wow.
Yeah, Pete did an 8-year experiment called Pain-Free Radio, where he was not able to look at people to visibly assess them. He would listen to their story, how they would talk about it, the tone of their voice, and was able to help people get out of pain just on the radio, just by how they were talking. And it's all, he got so good at it where he was calling people's hair color.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're good stuff. If you go to, I'm trying to think where they are. It's I think if you look up Pain-Free Radio, we have a lot of archives on there just to listen to Pete talk, and how the method has grown from the beginning of the show to the end, as far as how he talks about it, is really cool.
So I know we're kind of running out of time. We got a few minutes left, so I want to take the next few minutes I've got about 5 minutes. I want you to kind of walk us through the process of, we get to you, and you just walk us from the minute I walk through the door. What are the steps that you take? What are we looking to do? What are you looking to do for them? How should they be prepared when they come to see you? And then after we go over all that, we'll talk a little bit about where you're located, and that way they can find out where you're at and give you a call.
Cool. Our process is very simple. You come in, we usually send you some information ahead of time to fill out, so we get a history. We talk about your history, because we got to make sure your mind's right, making sure that this Egoscue program and this approach is not necessarily you have to buy into it 100% right away, but that it is logical, that you can see how maybe your posture being off could create these symptoms or these limitations in your body. From there, if we have some agreement there, then we go and actually look at your posture. We sit down, we take pictures of you, we put you on the TV like we did for you, make fun of you for a little bit. But more importantly, it's just so that your therapist and the client or you are on the same page, that you can see exactly what your therapist sees, that you're not, okay, well, I think my foot's the problem. Well, your back's the problem. It's not that. We're on the same page. We're together. The client is an active participant in their therapy. So they see what's going on. Then we do some simple testing of your body. We're big at 8 targets: shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. We want to see how they work or how they don't work, if they work the same on either side, if they work in unison. So we do some testing, and then lastly, we build a series of exercises for you, which we put in an order called a menu. We teach you how to do everything exactly as we would expect you to continue at home. We print out clear, concise instructions for you. We email them to you.
Hopefully not destructions.
Not destructions. Instructions. What did I say? Instructions. Clear, concise instructions with pictures and everything. We email you an exact copy, and we even have an iPhone app that you can follow your menu on your iPhone, which is new. And So we also are the no excuse method. We're going to give you every possible way to be successful with this thing. And that's no, thank you. And that's the process. That's the process. It's very pretty simple. It's not too invasive. We're just doing regular pictures of you. We have people wear gym clothes, shorts, t-shirt, no shoes, for the assessment anyway, no shoes.
So you heard it here. You'll be fully destructed by the time you're done with Greg. So
it depends what kind of wrestling move I put on you. That's all.
All right, Greg. So now for people who are saying, you know what, I'm in. I got to go see Greg at his clinic, and let's get this going. Where do they find you? How can they reach you? What are the different methods that they can be in contact with you?
Sure. We have a couple different options for therapy. Our physical location, we're in Westchester. We're in the town of Purchase. Our physical address is, we're located in, it's going to be super confusing because we're in the town of Purchase, but the name of the business park is called Harrison Executive Park. It's just the town next door. Who knows why they changed it? So Harrison Executive Park, 3010 Westchester Avenue. We're on the second floor, Suite 204 in Purchase, New York. Our telephone number is 914-509-5972. Or easily contacted by email at westchester@egoscue.com or me personally, greg@egoscue.com. As far as therapy types, we have in-person therapy, like Nick experienced, coming in, getting all this stuff done. We're able to do two different types of online therapy. One is very similar to the in-person experience. We do the whole thing on a Google Hangout, Skype, FaceTime. We spend the same amount of time with you. We break down your posture with you together. We put you through the exercises. The only thing is you don't have to be here and smell my breath. And then we have another kind of less intrusive, less therapy where if you're able to if you can't have Skype or not technologically proficient or not as well, that's good, technologically proficient. Take some pictures of your posture, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Take 4 pictures, a front view, a back view, a left and right side view, and email or hard copy them to us, and we can give an assessment just based on your pictures alone. It's not a full picture, but it's a great snapshot into predicting kind of what your body's going to do and then getting something that's more personal for you. On another end, if the personal therapy is not for me for whatever reason, Pete Egoscue has 5 books out there. His biggest seller, his most popular one is Pain Free. Go to Amazon and look it up. You'll easily find it there. It's the second or third book that you will see when you type in the word pain. And it's a great start. It's an inexpensive start. I think you can get the book for $8. So.
That's our gong letting us know that we're pretty much out of time. But you know what? I'm big on the sound.
I love it. That's great.
I love to have you back on. I had like 20 more questions I wanted to ask you, but we obviously didn't have enough time. So we're going to try to get you back.
Absolutely.
If you're willing, we'll get you back before the end of the summer.
Cool.
And talk a little bit more about everything and go into the questions. But you've heard it here, all the ways and methods to contact Greg. And Greg, I appreciate you coming on to the show.
I appreciate you inviting me on the show. I'm thankful. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. We'll see you guys. This has been another episode of Healthy Hangout. We'll see you next week at another episode of Healthy Hangout.
Take care.